Every day around 2 or 3, it hits, right? You feel your energy drop out, focus disappears, you get that brain fog where even simple tasks like answering an email feel harder than they should. But almost automatically, you reach for something, another cup of coffee, something sweet, chocolate. I like that. Anything just to get through the rest of the day. And for a lot of people, this has become so routine, it just feels normal. Like that's just what afternoons are supposed to feel like, but it's not. That afternoon crash isn't just about being busy or getting older or needing more caffeine. It's your body's sending you a signal that something earlier in your day, how you ate, how you slept, how your body's being fueled, isn't working the way it should. Because when your body's set up properly, you shouldn't need to push through the afternoon. Your energy should be steady. And the good news is, once you understand what's driving that crash, it's actually pretty simple to fix. So why did this crash happen in the first place? For most people, it comes down to 3 main drivers. The first is blood sugar spikes and crashes. The second is poor sleep or disrupted circadian rhythm. And the third is stress and cortisol imbalance. And while those might sound like separate issues, they're actually deeply connected, because when your blood sugar is unstable, your energy becomes unstable. When your sleep is off, your body can't regulate energy properly during the day. And when you're under constant stress, well, your body starts to rely on stress hormones just to keep you going, which eventually leads to that crash. So what feels like a random afternoon slump is usually the result of patterns that start hours earlier, sometimes even the night before. And here's the key point. The biggest driver of all 3 of these is what you eat, how you structure your day. It's your meals, your morning routine, your sleep habits. They're either setting you up for steady energy or setting you up for that 2 p.m. or sometimes 3 or 4 p.m. crash. And once you start to understand that, well, you can start to change it. This episode was brought to you by Function. Get access to over 160 lab tests annually at functionhealth.com/mark. Let's explore each one of these main triggers. The most common reason people crash in the afternoon is unstable blood sugar. If your breakfast or lunch is high in sugar, it's low in protein, or it's highly processed, you get a spike in energy, followed by a crash a few hours later. And that crash often hits right around 2 or 3 p.m. So what's actually causing that energy spike and crash in the first place? Well, there are a few really common patterns we see over and over again. Skipping breakfast is a big one. When you don't eat in the morning, your body is just running on stress hormones, just trying to keep your energy up. And while that might feel okay at first, it often sets you up for a bigger crash later in the day. Another common one is coffee and a pastry or coffee on its own in the morning. That combo gives you a quick boost, but it's coming from caffeine and sugar. It's not real. It's not sustained fuel. So your blood sugar spikes and then it drops. And smoothies can also be an issue, especially ones that are mostly fruit or sugar. Even though they seem healthy, they actually act a lot like sugar in the body if they're not balanced with protein and with fat. And then there's lunch. If your lunch is built around refined carbs, things like white bread, pasta, processed foods, you get that same pattern again. A quick rise in energy, followed by a drop a few hours later. And when you stack these patterns together across the day, well, a light or sugary breakfast, a carb-heavy lunch, you create the perfect setup for that 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. crash. Because all these meals have one thing in common. They give you quick energy, but no stability. So if these are the patterns that are driving the crash, the question becomes, how do you actually fix it? Well, the simplest and the most effective place to start is by building more stable meals. Because when your meals are balanced, your energy becomes balanced. The key is making sure that every meal includes 3 things: protein, healthy fats, and fiber. That's just the foundation. That combo changes everything. Protein helps you feel full and supports your steady energy. Healthy fats slow down how quickly your food's absorbed. And fiber, and it also makes you feel full. Fiber, especially from veggies and whole foods, helps regulate your blood sugar response. So instead of getting that sharp spike and then a drop, you get much slower sustained energy release throughout the day, and that's what carries you through the afternoon. This doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as eggs with avocado and greens in the morning, olive oil, a lunch with chicken, veggies, and olive oil. Small shifts, but they make a big difference. Because when you start stabilizing your meals earlier in the day, you're no longer chasing energy later in the day, you're creating it. Your body clock also matters. The second major driver of that afternoon crash is your circadian rhythm, your internal body clock, because your energy isn't just about what you eat. It's also about when your body expects to be awake, alert, and active. Your body runs on a 24-hour rhythm that controls things like energy, hormones, sleep, even your metabolism. And when that rhythm is aligned, well, your energy naturally rises in the morning. It stays steady throughout the day, and then it gradually winds down at night. But when that rhythm gets disrupted, well, everything feels off. And today, that disruption is incredibly common. If you're not getting enough natural light in the morning, if you're sleeping inconsistently, you're staying up late on screens, your body loses those signals. The signals that tell it when to be energized and when to rest. So instead of having a smooth energy curve, you get these dips and crashes. And that afternoon slump is often one of the first signs that your internal clock is out of sync. Now, the good news is that this is one of the simplest and most powerful systems of the body to start improving because your body is constantly looking for signals to regulate its internal clock, what we call your circadian rhythm. And when that rhythm gets disrupted, it affects almost everything: your energy metabolism, hormones, your appetite, your mood, your focus, even inflammation and blood sugar regulation. One of the most powerful signals for resetting that internal clock is light. Getting natural sunlight within the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking helps send a very clear message to the brain. It's daytime. It's time to wake up and be alert. Okay. That morning light exposure helps regulate key hormones like cortisol and melatonin. Now, cortisol often has a bad rap, but healthy cortisol in the morning is actually important. It helps you wake up, stabilize energy, support your metabolism, and it keeps the sleep-wake cycle functioning properly. And then later in the evening, melatonin rises to help the body wind down and prepare for sleep. So when you get consistent morning light exposure, well, you help strengthen that natural rhythm. And people often notice more stable energy, better focus, fewer afternoon crashes, improved sleep quality, and even better mood. And honestly, this doesn't have to be complicated. Even 10 to 20 minutes outside in natural light while walking or just getting fresh air can have a meaningful impact on your health. The second piece is consistency. Your body thrives on rhythm. Going to bed and waking up at roughly the same time each day helps reinforce your circadian biology and improve your sleep quality over a period of time. And this is where people often unintentionally work against themselves. Late night scrolling, irregular sleep schedule, sleeping in on the weekends, working late under bright lights, all those things can confuse the brain's internal timing systems more than people realize. That's where screens become especially important. At night, exposure to blue light from phones, tablets, computers, and TVs can signal to the brain that it's still daytime, which suppresses melatonin production, makes it harder to fully wind down. That doesn't just affect falling asleep, it affects the depth and the quality of your sleep too. So even reducing screen exposure 30 to 60 minutes before bed can make a surprisingly meaningful difference. And when sleep improves, well, everything tends to work better. Energy improves, mood improves, craving improves, blood sugar improves, recovery improves, even inflammation can improve. Because sleep is not just rest, it's one of the body's primary repair and recovery mechanisms. So again, this isn't just about perfection or extreme changes. It's about consistently giving your body the signals that it was biologically designed to respond to. And often those small daily habits create much bigger shifts than people expect. Get this. One of the most common sources of mercury exposure I see isn't from a factory. It's actually from someone eating tuna twice a week because they're trying to eat healthy. And that's what makes heavy metals so tricky. Most people don't think they'll be exposed to them. Mercury can accumulate in large fish. And then look at lead. It can come from old paint, old pipes, and older homes. You can't see it happening, and you don't always feel it either. And that's why they can build up and go unnoticed for years. I've seen people blame brain fog, fatigue, and trouble concentrating on stress, aging, or just poor sleep when it could be one of these toxic metals. That's exactly why we built Function. Function gives you access to 160 plus lab tests annually that measure signals in your blood, including nutrients, liver health, inflammation, and hormones. You can also complete your health baseline with an annual MRI that helps you see organs, tissues, and other changes. Check your health at functionhealth.com/mark. And if you're one of the first 1,000 people this week, use the code MARK2026 for a $50 credit toward your $365 a year membership. Third major driver of that afternoon crash is stress, and specifically how stress affects your cortisol levels. Because when you're under constant stress, your body shifts into a different mode. It starts relying on stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline to keep you going. And in the short term, well, that can actually feel helpful. You feel alert, you feel focused, like you can push through the day, but it's not really sustainable. Over time, your body starts to burn through its reserves. Cortisol becomes dysregulated, meaning it's either too high when it shouldn't be or it crashes when you actually need it. And that's often what people feel in the afternoon. So you go from running on stress to suddenly feeling drained, low energy, low motivation, brain fog. It's not because you're lazy or you're unmotivated. It's because your body has been in overdrive all day long. And it can't keep that pace, really. And the tricky part is a lot of people don't even realize how much stress their body is under. Because it's not just one big obvious stress, it's this constant notification, the back to back meetings, the not taking breaks, the poor sleep, all that adds up. Your body keeps the score. Because even if your food is dialed in, if your body is in a constant state of stress, your energy is going to reflect that. So the goal here isn't to eliminate stress. It's not realistic. The third fix is to lower your baseline stress level throughout the day. And the good news is this doesn't have to be complicated. Simple things can make a real difference. Taking a short walk, even 5 or 10 minutes, can help reset your nervous system. Stepping outside, getting some fresh air, changing your environment, that alone can shift your energy. Deep breathing is another powerful tool. So start slowing your breath, even for a minute or two. That signals to your body that it's safe to come out of that stress response. And then there's something most people skip entirely: taking breaks. Even brief pauses throughout the day to step away from your screen, to reset your focus, just to slow down, can prevent that buildup of stress that leads to the crash later. Because when you create these small moments of recovery throughout the day, you're not just managing stress, you're stabilizing your energy. And over time, those small resets, they add up to much more consistent, steady feeling throughout the day. Now let's talk about caffeine, because for a lot of people, this is where things start to go wrong. Caffeine itself isn't the problem. In the right context, it can actually be helpful. But the way most people are using it is setting them up for that afternoon crash. If you're drinking coffee first thing in the morning before you had any real food, you're essentially layering caffeine on top of an already elevated stress hormone level. And that can feel like energy, but not sustainable. Another common pattern is using coffee instead of food. Skipping meals, relying on caffeine to push through, well, that might work short term, but eventually your body just catches up. And then there's an all day cycle: coffee in the morning, another cup mid morning, maybe one in the afternoon, just keep going. At that point, you're not creating energy, you're just borrowing it. All of these same patterns have the same effect. They mask the underlying issue, but they don't actually fix it. The good news is you don't have to give up coffee, you just have to use it differently. Having it after or alongside a balanced meal helps prevent that spike in the crash effect. Second, pair it with real food. Protein, fat, and fiber, they help buffer the impact of caffeine. They help keep your energy more stable. And third, be mindful of timing. Caffeine later in the day can interfere with your sleep, even if you don't feel it right away. And when your sleep is disrupted, well, your energy next day suffers. So avoiding caffeine in the late afternoon can make a bigger difference than people realize. And again, this isn't just about eliminating coffee. It's about using it in a way that actually supports your energy instead of working against it. All right, let's do some rapid fire Q&A. Why do I feel exhausted even after a full night of sleep? Well, because sleep quantity and sleep quality are not the same thing. You can technically sleep 8 hours, but if you still wake up exhausted, if your blood sugar is unstable, if your stress hormones are elevated, if your sleep rhythm is disrupted, your body needs deep restorative sleep, not just time in bed. Is it normal to crave sugar in the afternoon? Well, very common, but not necessarily normal. Okay. Afternoon sugar cravings are often a sign of unstable blood sugar or inadequate protein earlier in the day. Your body's looking for quick energy because it's running low on stable fuel. Can dehydration make the afternoon crash worse? Absolutely. Even mild dehydration can affect energy, focus, mood, physical performance. And a lot of people are underhydrated and overcaffeinated without realizing it. Should I nap if I crash in the afternoon? Well, short naps can actually be helpful for some people, especially if sleep debt is involved. But if you constantly need long naps just to function, it's usually a sign that something deeper needs support. Sleep quality, stress, blood sugar, nutrition, circadian rhythm, something's off. Does exercise help with energy or usually make it worse? Well, usually it helps. When done appropriately, regular movement improves insulin sensitivity, your circulation, your mitochondrial function, your mood, your stress regulation, but more is not always better. If your body is already depleted, excessive high-intensity exercise can sometimes worsen the fatigue. Why do I feel more awake at night than during the day? Well, that's often a sign of your circadian rhythm that's out of sync. Late night screens, exposure, stress, inconsistent sleep schedules, inadequate light exposure earlier in the day, all can shift your body into a delayed rhythm. Can stress alone really cause fatigue? Absolutely. Chronic stress changes cortisol patterns. It affects sleep quality. It disrupts your blood sugar. It keeps the nervous system in a constant state of overdrive. And eventually, the body struggles to just maintain a steady energy. Is the afternoon crash just a part of aging? Well, no. Naturally, energy changes with age, but constantly crashing every afternoon is usually a signal that the body needs better support, not something you simply have to accept. So when that 2 p.m. crash hits, it can feel random, like you just ran out of energy, but it's not random. In most cases, it's the result of a few key things coming together: unstable blood sugar, poor sleep, or a disrupted circadian rhythm, and chronic, unrelenting stress. When those stack up across your day, well, that crash becomes almost inevitable. And here's the most important part. These are all things you can change. You don't need more willpower. You don't need to push through it. You need better inputs. If you want to start creating more steady energy, it can be simple. Start with your meals, build them around protein, healthy fats and fiber, support your body's rhythm, get morning light, protect your sleep, keep your schedule consistent, and look for small ways to reduce stress throughout the day. Even short breaks, a quick walk, a few minutes of breathing can make a big difference. You don't have to overhaul everything at once. Just a few consistent changes can completely shift how you feel, because the goal isn't to get through your day on caffeine and willpower. You shouldn't have to push through your day at all. When your body is supported properly, well, energy becomes steady, focus is easier, and then afternoon crash, well, starts to disappear. If you love that last video, you're going to love the next one. Check it out here.